A revolutionary. Say whoa. Trap revolutionary, got the wave it too scary. Doing this thing like Malcolm, ain't by any means necessary. We ain't got it by no one seen hand. We got the master plan. Get the movement going on. Right here where we stand, man. We bucking and stumping, fist pumping. Even though they tried to set us up for failure and kill us, we keep on coming. That's why somebody gotta step up and say something about the bullshit. Because if not, the blind gon' keep leaving.
What's going on, y'all? I want to do a video about reparations. Well, the UN did a vote on, pass a resolution about slavery being one of the gravest crimes against humanity.
Gathering in the name of remembrance and reparations to back a draft resolution recognising the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity.
There's no such thing as a slave. There were human beings who were trafficked and then enslaved by people who believed they could own those human beings as chattels.
The consequences of which, he says, still persist today, and accused the US of normalising the erasure of history.
Schools are being mandated to stop teaching students about the truth of slavery, segregation, and racism in American history courses.
There are some fake news articles suggesting that the sponsors of this resolution called into question President Trump's support of the black community. We reject any such suggestions.
The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 123, against 3, abstentions 52.
Argentina, Israel and the US voting against the resolution. The United Kingdom and members of the EU among those abstaining.
The UK is firmly of the view that we must not create a hierarchy of historical atrocities.
The Netherlands, the only European country to have issued a formal apology for its role in slavery, abstaining from the vote for similar reasons. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres welcomed the resolution.
But far bolder actions and many more states are needed.
At least 12.5 million Africans were taken and sold between the 15th and 19th centuries.
The colonial powers, Portugal, Britain, France, Germany, they have never been sincere to Africa. Nothing, no support.
The landmark resolution now expected to add weight to demands for reparations.
The vote was basically to get countries that engage in slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, to pay reparations. 123 countries voted, for it. 52 abstained from it, and then 3 voted against it. Those 3 were Israel, United States, and Argentina. The countries that abstained, a number of those were European countries, UK. Germany, if I'm not mistaken, and some other countries that I believe abstained. So in saying that, in trying to pass a resolution, it doesn't have a legal binding, but in voting and, passing that particular resolution, it could open up doors to where, there may be other things that may be done to push it along, to push the possible, passing reparations along, and also forcing those particular countries that did engage in the transatlantic slave trade to pay reparations. The United States is, which I did some research, I want to do like a deep dive and just really study the matter. The United States has always, presented the position that it wasn't illegal at the time internationally, so they shouldn't have to pay reparations to anyone, for that matter, black people or anyone for that matter. So, in saying that, the United States has actually paid reparations. They've actually paid former slaveholders, after slavery was abolished, they actually paid former slaveholders. Special Field Order, William Tecumseh, William Tecumseh. Let me see what his full name. Let me make sure I get that right because I don't want to pronounce the name wrong. It was issued by William Tecumseh, but it was issued as a special field order, and to have basically 40 acres for free, families, families that came out of slavery, for them to be able to basically, have a way to be able to live, I guess, be able to create their own, sustain themselves, create their own, way to make a living, So the way that end up going, though, is that after slavery, they actually end up reversing it. So Abraham Lincoln ended up getting assassinated. Andrew Johnson becomes president. He reverses it, the special field order. That, the special, field order number 15 that was signed by William Tecumseh to give, it was 400,000 acres of land to former slave, the former enslaved people, so they can have land to, like I said, build something for themselves, to be able to create, make a living and, sustain themselves. That was passed, that was enacted, that was signed by William Tecumseh to be able to help those former enslaved families out. But after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, it was reversed by President Andrew Johnson. So, it's a tragedy, because what happened was, with that being reversed, basically it's estimated that was basically billions worth of land, which would, in today, it would equate to billions of, basically in wealth for those black families. So being that those, they end up not being able to where it was reversed, those families were forcibly removed off the land. So they couldn't even, actually stay on land. Actually, and was said like some were removed by gunpoint. Probably most, are scared away, from the land. So basically billions of, I guess, billions of dollars of wealth were lost in that sense. Then in, 1874, like the Freedmen's Bank was started after 1865. After we did not get the land that we were pretty much, that was designated for the formerly enslaved, the black families to get. After that happened, they, that was reversed. After Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, that land was reversed and returned to the former slave owners. And then they, tried to build wealth by creating the Freedmen's Bank. So a lot of black families put their monies into the Freedmen's Bank. Now I come to find out even tonight, I didn't even know Frederick Douglass, he actually took over that institution, to try to save it as it was, going kind of declining. But start that at 1865, and then 1874, it basically collapsed. It said they had over maybe 35 branches across the United States, and ended up collapsing, and all the money in it went with it. Nobody knows what happens to the millions of dollars that was, within that bank. So it was said that they say it was lost, but pretty much you kind of understanding is that it was stolen. So, that institution collapsed and all the money along with it left. So that's another, they said, which was a financial blow to, us as a people here. We're black, formerly enslaved people here. That was a major blow, to us, to be able to create generational wealth. And that's why the wealth gap is so large between black families and white families here in this country. So, that's another thing, when we say, a generational wealth, in the wealth gap, no generational wealth was able to be created because of these things. These basically financial blows we've been taking throughout time. Being enslaved, because you have to count that. I'm not even counting after slavery. We saying slavery. You can say trillions that were lost, that were not paid over time during slavery. And the compounding factor of wealth that we didn't get to see. And say even if we worked at minimum wage for those 200 years, all of the families in there could have got paid minimum wage. Just the amount of wealth that could have been created from that. Minimum wage only. You know what I'm saying? But no money was paid. So it's like that's lost generational wealth. Then you have after slavery, the institutions that were, set up that end up being folded or in some form of fashion corrupted so to where they could not succeed. Just like I said, even with the special field order, that was end up signed to allow our formerly slave ancestors to take advantage of the land and be able to sustain themselves and create something from that. So that's a crucial blow, and for us not to be able to have that, hey man, it's I would say it has us in a situation we're in today to where you don't have black families with that type of wealth. Even I question the fact that why can't I go to my brother or my parents for, $100,000, $200,000, and that's because we don't have generational wealth. Most of the time you have families that can do that, and I'm not saying it's an excuse or anything like that to where I'm saying oh man, we can't do this, we can't do it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying as far as in the generational wealth impact, those certain things that we end up not being able to capitalize on are things that were either destroyed or stolen from us. It created that particular issue, to where we don't have that particular generational wealth, where I can't go, most black families can't go to, someone for that type of money because the wealth is not there because of the gap, because of what, was done in those institutions that were pretty much destroyed, or things, like I said, the special order like William Tecumseh Sherman, which he signed in effect, but then it was, like I said, later reversed. So that's wealth that we just couldn't, never could end up taking a hold of and then making something out of it. It was always, like I said, taken from us or in some form or fashion, or stolen, either taken or stolen. So, that has been a major problem. And the U.S., that's the thing about it. They've given reparations actually to Japanese Americans. In 1988, they actually passed the Civil Liberties Civil Liberties Act of 1988, and they gave reparations to Japanese Americans for being put into concentration camps during World War II. And they paid them $20,000 per person. So reparations have been given, but for us, they have not been given, and it's still an issue today. And to be honest with you, and I'm like, how do we get to a yes? And I try not to be presented to where, I'm upset about it. I am very upset about it, but I try to present it in a way that I'm like, how can we get to a yes? because I don't want to get in here and say, oh, let's do this. We need to just, do this. We need to do that. We need to, just set it off or whatever, It may take that, though. It may actually take some form of fashion of, force, because it's, I don't know a other way to get to a yes when it's, it's a systematic denial over years. And, even the government has recognized slavery at the time, when it was going on, because they considered, even for tax purposes, for counting and being able to tax slave owners, they would count our ancestors, as 3/5 of a person, for tax purposes. So, those particular slave owners would not be overtaxed, because what it would do is, if you counted our enslaved ancestors as a whole person, then that means, you're getting so much money to where, you're going to be taxed, highly for having so many basically slave people working for you, So they counted our people that, as 3/5 of a person, just for tax purposes, voting purposes, voting rights purposes, so representation purposes. So, I would say even that, slavery was recognized, in the Constitution, and it still puzzles me, though, that the U.S. would say that, they don't recognize and they're not willing to pay reparations for something that was not illegal at the time, internationally. So, a number of things have been recognized, as illegal later on after the fact. Like I said, in Germany, Hitler's Germany, the Holocaust and what they was doing, putting, Jews in concentration camps. That was illegal then at that time. But then Germany came back and paid Jews, I want to say billions and trillions of dollars in reparations for the Holocaust. So in the like I said, that's why it puzzles me that we would not be paid. And I'm a rebut the fact that people would say, you can't pay reparations, because who would it go to? It's a systematic process that you can identify people that were enslaved, and basically connecting those people to slavery. Like me, my mother's father was a sharecropper. His, parents were enslaved. So you make a connection in that sense. You have, it's very simple to make that connection. You have people coming out of, especially in certain southern areas, you have people that we're actually not even far removed from slavery. If you want to think about it in that sense, but through generational lines, the connections can be made. So, people will make the excuse, and that's the thing about it. Let's not excuse that away or making excuses. Oh, it can't be done because you can't identify. No, it can be easily identified. You got people right now today that's, they still remember their, grandparents or their parents, and probably hearing the stories of, the sharecropping days or, picking cotton days, so yeah. The connection can be, and it's scientifically as well. You just got too much technology out there to identify people in past lineage or whatever, so, but yeah, I would even say that. I would even, rebut that, so-called dispute or whatever. Will it be hard to pay people? No, it won't be hard to pay people if you wanted to, because everybody I've seen has been paid that has been harmed, in some form or fashion. They've been paid reparations, and it's just like, how did the slave owners end up getting paid reparations? They ain't said in the UK. This is crazy. They said in the UK. Not only here did they pay the former slave owners and then give them their land back, they did it in the UK. You know what I'm saying? Actually, they said in Britain, they literally just stopped paying, the taxpayers just stopped paying the former slave owners in the UK, in Britain, you know. And that was in the 1800s when they stopped. I want to be exact, 1833, I believe, when they stopped slavery in the UK, you know, in the United Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken. So they said, you know, British taxpayers just stopped paying those former slaveholders. So that is, you know, I don't know, man. It's amazing that has occurred, and the people that were harmed were not paid, but the people, you know, that did the harm were paid. You know, and I would just have to say, man, it's you know, it amazes me, and to me it makes no sense. But you just have to question the fact would this have happened if we were not melanated people, if we were not black people, because that's the type of discrimination that continues to happen around this issue of reparations and being paid reparations here in America, and I guess in the diaspora as well. You know, especially here in America though. America just, you know, does not want to pay, and you know, it's like a slap in the face, like, hey, we're not going to pay you. It's just what it is, and you know, that's just the way we stand on it, and that's just where it is. Just where we're going to continue to. That's where we're going to continue to stand. And so, you know, I just, you know, wonder, you know, how to get to that yes I was talking about. You know, I mean, I you know, it's certain HR 40 has been passed, and you have laws in, you know, California is, you know, trying to pass something surrounding reparations, to study reparations. I believe they are actually presenting that. You know, you have other places that, you know, like I said, San Francisco. You have other places around the country that has considered, you know, reparations studies or some form of fashion of reparations that can be paid. So, you know, I would say to get to that, yes, I know that it's going to be a number of things that have to be enacted. It will have to continue to be a push towards those, you know, reparations, you know, policies or, you know, studies or whatever. And then a structure to where, you know, it would be paid out, you know. So I would think from reparations studies, bills being passed, and then overall full payout. But I think another thing to where we will all have to unify on a mass scale to like get that done. It wouldn't be just like one person here, one person there. It would literally like all of us, like, you know, and I understand that's hard, but all of us would have to be, you know, on the same page to get that done. And I would say a way to get to yes, and like I said, and to get people to understand it and to move forward in, you know, on one accord, is to show people, you know, the reason is deserved, the monies that are deserved, the wealth that could be built from that, the institutions that could be built from that. And also, you know, it would be a sense of closure, not only for us, but for our ancestors that passed in slavery, because there's a lot of bodies lost. You know, I'll say over 12.5 million bodies lost, you know, in that transatlantic slave trade, you know, coming across the ocean, people dying during en route, you know, people dying in slavery, you know. So a number of, you know, people lost, man. So, you know, you have to understand that. And like I said, providing a sense of closure for us here, because the tension is still there. That I think mental anguish is still there. Like those things that happen to us it's the anger is in our DNA. The fear is in our DNA. You know, that sense of you know, just trauma is in our DNA. So I think that's another thing it will provide a sense of closure for us, and to know that we have gotten paid, and also it's for our ancestors. It ain't up for us to just be enriched for no reason, right? But it's for us to understand and have that closure, for our ancestors. We deserve that, they deserve that. So it's no way around it. I know the United States is going to continue to say they're not going to pay it. It's not worth it, or because it wasn't illegal at the time. But to get to that, yes, it has to be a collective effort, and also a unified effort, and also a collaborative effort. Like it has to be that, to where we're all going towards that. It's kind of like us, and we have to think about this too. It's kind of like us, fighting to get out of slavery. It's the same thing. Like we're gonna have to, in a sense, we're gonna have to fight for this thing as well. We want to fight for this to get reparations as well. I know some people probably like, hey man, I'm not worried about it, and this and the other, it'll never happen. But I always say, we have to make an effort to make that happen, because it's too much. It's too much, man. Where I would say to not get, it's too much that has went on. It's too much that we have been denied, too much wealth that has been lost for us not to get that or try to do something about it to get it. So I know I'm gonna be coming up with strategy, and I'm gonna be thinking about some stuff, how I could, get people to see how, we could make it happen. 'Cause of course I know that we can reparate ourselves. We can provide ourselves with reparation. Not even presented that, like all of us drop $5 in the pot once a week, once a month. You know what I'm saying? If you say it's 30 million of us, that's billions of dollars. If we just died, everybody going towards a reparation fund for Black people, and then we allocate that to build institutions and things of that nature, not to just, blow the money, but to actually build banks, schools, hospitals, whatever institutions we need to help us in our situation here in America. 30 million, like literally, we 30 million times 5, just one time, that's 150 million. Just one time, each of us put $5 in the pot. And I know, all of us may not have, a lot of money, but you can pretty much ask, I say, of us collectively to do that. And $5 is not much to ask, but it's a reasonable amount, and actually it can be something that can be actually powerful, and we could actually do something with. But yeah, so I just want to get on here and talk about that, because like I said, the reparations issue is something major, man, and I just think it's something that we have to rally around and see about, trying to get, because it's like, it's going on too long. The word just not, it's not being paid. And at this point, it's like, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to get to a yes, find out how to get to a yes, or we just going to continue to be denied and just let it ride? I know that eventually it's going to happen. I don't know when, but I would say it needs to be a cumulative effort to where, like I said, things are being passed, bills are being, made, like I said, like with San Francisco and the other places that are enacting certain bills and certain studies. But it has to be to where those things are being done, but also we're making a push, in our communities, and continue to even connect with other countries, where our brothers and sisters in other countries that are trying to, make an effort to push for reparations, like, in the diaspora, make countries that did engage in the transatlantic slave trade to pay reparations, and then it would come here as well, or not even just separate the thing, but make a full push. You have things enacted here, like I said, the resolution with the UN, and then, just make sure that here in the United States that we go full force to get reparations here, you know, and, you know, just continue to press the issue and like, hey, you know, like this, you know, even if we had to do from the ground, you know, a grassroots level, you know, where we're contacting our state representative and keep, you know, on them about contact them being in the Senate or, you know, in the House of Representatives or whatever, them presenting it and us not letting them not present it, you know, in the Senate, you know, to where it continues to be pushed and not let go, you know, to where we continue to push that and, you know, and get it done, you know. So, you know, I think it could be done. It's just a matter of us strategizing and getting that done, you know, because nobody's going to give us anything. Just same thing with, you know, coming out of slavery. You know, that wouldn't have been done unless we actually fought for it. And we did fight for it. You know, Abraham Lincoln, like I said in the prior video, Abraham Lincoln didn't wake up one day and say out of the kindness of his heart, he's going to let, you know, our people go. You know, it was over economics and it was over us, you know, causing an uproar, fighting for it. You know, like I said, the Geechee Gullah Wars, actually fighting to get out of slavery. So, you know, it forced their hand, you know. So, you know, I like I said, it just has to be something done about it. We had to get to a yes. And it's however it has to go, you know, by any means that we have to, you know, to get it. But like I said, I know that it has to be something done in the sense of, like I said, most likely on a grassroots level, getting those senators or whatever, those particular politicians to present it and not letting up. Certain community organizations organizing around the issue and everyone on a collective level pushing for that and just not letting it go. And also us seeing, like I said, the benefit of it is to be able to create the institutions from it. And also us understanding like, hey, this would give us a sense of closure to be paid something, you know, something for all those, like I said, all those lives were lost, all of the money that was lost, the wealth gap, the generational wealth that was lost, you know, it's just so many things that were lost. So I think that are necessary for us to get, you know, from reparations. And so that's why I would say it's necessary to get it and also to come together as a strategy to come together to get it. Like I said, having those bills passed or us organizing the community first, then going to our state representatives or, you know, whatever, you know, senators and, you know, whoever we have in the House of Representatives, getting them to, you know, push it through and knowing that, hey, we're not taking no for an answer. It has to be pushed through, you know, and people, you know, on the ground in other countries connecting with our, you know, our people in other countries to you know, go about getting it, you know, and then, you know, if it's just nothing completely done about it, then I think we have to use, you know, whatever other method to, you know, to get it. But I know it's going to start through the laws first, and then if it's just absolutely denied, then I just think we need to, you know, use whatever other means we have to get those reparations, you know, because it's not going to come by just asking for it. I mean, just, you know, just being passive about it, you know, it's not going to come like that. You know, we really have to, you know, I would say make a plan, make a strategy around it, and everybody connect on a level to where, hey, you know, we're saying like we need this, and this is not something that's it's not up for negotiation, you know, and the fact that other people have been paid all around pretty much, you know, I said with Jews being paid, UK actually, I think I want to say they paid Kenyan people like, you know, millions of dollars for the mistreatment in the UK. Just here recently, they paid Kenyans for a type of mistreatment there reparations, like I said, have been paid to here, to Japanese Americans. Reparations have been paid by Germany, like I said, to the Jews for the Holocaust. So it's not just a far-fetched thing, or even talking about it, and that being a possibility, or something that can be, realized, or actually may come to, to be able to come to fruition, to be able to make it happen. So that's what I would say, man. I just think that, we have to, and like I said, we have to do something about it. And for us not to give reparations, it's just continued in the way and I know how I feel, like it's like a slap in the face, not to give reparations, and then everybody else has been paid. Like, that's just what it is. It's nowhere around it, and I think that all of us have a responsibility to connect and to try to try to connect with each other, try to find out a way that we can, make this happen. Instead of just like saying, hey man, that's not possible. Just know that it can happen. In a collective, we make a collective effort to make it happen. So yeah, I would say that you got to count for all the lives were lost, man, all the bodies. That's serious, man. That's very serious. Even just that alone, it's like, what about that? No one we haven't been paid for that. And you can't even pay for that. All the lives that were lost. So it's very serious. And I think some people, they just think about the money aspect of it, like, and then they think about, oh well, we're not gonna get that or whatever. But no, you have to take that very seriously, because even in that sense, that is generations of people lost. You'll never get that back, and you can't, like I said, you can't even pay for that. So not to even consider it because you said it was illegal at the time. It was not illegal at the time. Then what about, like I said, Hitler's Germany, when it was legal to place Jews in concentration camps? That was illegal. Legal what they did is where at the time they put the Japanese Americans in concentration camps. They did that because they was afraid of them. That was legal at the time, but they recognized that as a wrong that they paid for. So it's like, it's certain things that were done, and that's why I said you can refute that, even that reasoning, because saying that it was not illegal at the time, and so we're not going to pay for anything that we did that was not illegal. The fact is, things have been paid for that were considered legal at the time, but after those things were abolished or came to be recognized as a wrong or a human's rights violation, those things were paid for. So even in this sense with reparations, those things that was abolished, and it's being recognized right now as a crime against humanity, and that's what it was. So just because, and that's another thing, like just because somebody's saying that no, well, it wasn't legal at the time, even that's the name, so that doesn't even, if you think about it, it's not even any, you have no legal basis to stand on that, because it's being recognized, and it is recognized as a crime against humanity. And it was abolished, so I think, like I said, that's just the way, man, we would have to go at this thing, because the United States is not going to concede the fact that they did anything wrong, and it's sad, like I said, but a collective effort has to be made. And if that can't do it, it has to be another way, to make them pay for reparations. And like I said, that's a collective. It might have to come up through a collective effort of us here, everything we're doing here legally, and then connected with our brothers and sisters, across the diaspora, and us, coming together and, applying pressure, so that's just what it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be a structured effort, a collective effort. And I wouldn't, I would say, hey, let's not let that go. I know, of course, I'm going to do my part any way I can. That's why I wanted to get on here and say something. I call like, hey, I need to get on here and say something because, yeah, they actually passed a resolution to, UN passed a resolution, here, like I said, here recently about that to, like I said, make countries pay, reparations for that crime that was done, so, yeah, that's all, man. I just had to get on here and say something. And I said I won't just present it to where I wasn't, upset or nothing like that, but just actually present the facts and let people understanding the reason behind it, the reason behind the U.S. saying they don't want to give reparations, and then the understanding, the logic behind the reason why it's necessary for reparations, because of what was done and because of the wealth that was lost, and also a fact of closure, because all of us feel it. I feel it, other families feel it. We know in our DNA how we feel. You can't get around that. I'm saying in DNA because it's in our DNA what has happened to us. I said that fear, that trauma, that particular anger that's there, that has happened to us like that. And then knowing it can, that particular, the wealth that has been lost, and even like I said in the prior video, all the things we done to try to pull ourselves up, but it was something that always, that was done to us to stop us from progress, so, it's just, you just go on and on. Money stole out the Freedmen's Bank during the Reconstruction era, Ku Klux Klan. We were, being, like I said, gaining political office, being judges, elected to Senate, House of Representatives, all that being, just totally being destroyed. Money's being stolen, land being stolen. So, some people see it as a complaint. It's like, oh, you always complaining, but it's like, no, it's not a complaint. It's just to show the facts, what was done, and the reason we don't have, that particular wealth or the institutions to build from is because of those things that stem from slavery, and right now that we don't have certain institutions and certain wealth building businesses or, generational businesses because of those things that were done, the wealth that was stolen. Every time we did try to make progress, something, like I talked about in the prior video, Tulsa, Oklahoma, being blamed for some, a false claim. And then, somebody saying somebody looked at a white person wrong. Somebody, raped a white person or did something, wrong to somebody white. And then the whole town gets burned down. People end up getting lynched, shot down, land being stolen. So those things continue to happen, and you see a pattern. And then that's why we don't have the generational wealth we should have today. So that's why it justifies reparations. This is things that we can show that we would have. And like I said, the compounding rate of return of money, things that was the money that was stolen out of Freedmen's Bank, they said would equal billions of dollars today, maybe trillions of dollars today, but all that money was stolen. So that's why I say the reparations are necessary, because even then we did try, those things were stolen or something was, blamed against us and end up being, taken from us out of that particular some type of false allegation, and that wealth building institution was destroyed. So even in that sense, it's just something we got to do, and there's no way around it. I know a lot of us don't really care about it. I ain't gonna say that. Don't let me say that. I think we do care about it, but I would say I think we've kind of given up too, though. A lot of people really feel like that, and that's another thing. Like, man, it's kind of sad that we feel like hopeless. Like, hey, man, it's not gonna happen, and you're just worrying about it. Let's just move forward, But I would say, in that sense, don't let the harsh reality of that destroy your hope, because, like my dad always told me, as long as you got life, you got hope, and I push that further to say, as long as you can make the effort, it's a chance to make a change. So, I would say that, don't ever let anyone, it's past circumstance or whatever, man, just deny your hope, man, or get you to thinking where, we're in so much despair where, hey, man, there ain't no hope, it ain't no any use of trying. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that. Let's all come together, man. Like, I'm serious when I say that. Like let's come together and be thinking on that. I would say even be praying on it, like working towards that, because we deserve that, and that's the only way we're going to get it. Just like I said, we would have never came out of slavery if it was not for us pushing forward, making an effort to get out of slavery, because you had our people fighting for it. You had our people also going and, talking to the politicians, actually abolitionists, trying to make sure that our people was freed out of slavery. So I would say that. Don't never give up hope, man. Don't never give up hope. Don't ever give up the effort to make a change. So let's think about that. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at it like that. We deserve reparations. We're going to always deserve reparations, and we're going to get it. We're going to get it. But anyway, I'm going to get up out here. I just want to get on here, like I said, provide the facts, man, to show that we deserve reparations. I want to show that, hey, how we can also provide a particular solution, how we can get it, like I said, making that collective effort in regards of enacting laws, stand on our state representatives, stand on our senators, or whoever it may be that have political office and representation in the areas that we're in. Continue to press the issue on that, as well as connecting with our people in the diaspora, our brothers and sisters overseas in the motherland or whatever, and continue to just press the issue in whatever way possible. So, and don't think just because you may be just one person, or you just like, hey, well, I don't know nobody. Don't think that, because we all know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. We all do. So yeah, let's make the effort, man, and let's, get what we deserve. But anyway, I'm gonna get up out here. I hope y'all out there, I hope y'all doing good, living life full of, love and happiness, and, strive for greatness every day, man. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate y'all, like I said before, like looking at my videos, liking my videos, and y'all, whatever, man. Just, continue to support me, man. Continue to support y'all. I'm going to continue to make the videos and, just do my best to get on here and, shed some light on things that, affect our community, affect us. Anyway, get up out here, y'all. To the next, y'all. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. All right, y'all.
Fuck it, go ahead and blow off the dough. Step through the maze, man, and became amazing. About to rewrite history and change a page in a crooked book that never told us the true story, like how we were kings and queens before the slave story, before the killing, stealing, and drug dealing. On some real shit, we ran the world.